MIDDLEKAUFF! Hey! Welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome to August. Welcome to Tito's time.
Hats popping, guy. Hats are popping. Helmets. Well, we need that thing over the top, but then it would cut out the label logo.
Yeah, I don't have one. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Haberman of MIDDLEKAUFF podcast. I'm Guy Haberman. That's John MIDDLEKAUFF. It is the first day of August. We just went to Niners practice, and we are sponsored by our great friends. Once again, back for football season. Let's welcome back to the show, Tito's Handmade Vodka. Standing O.
Golf clap.
It's great to have you back. Great to have you back. Great to have all of you. Thank you, John, a thank you to all of our listeners. A sincere, we make a lot of jokes around here time to time, but a sincere thank you because of you and your support. And you guys spent all last football season sending us pictures of you drinking Tito's, partying with Tito's. And Tito's saw it. Tito's felt the groundswell. Tito's heard the support. And Tito's is back for another football season. Because of your support, because they watched last football season, they went, yeah, that worked. We want more of that.
Yeah, they love and we love everything when you guys on Instagram tag us, on Twitter tag us. I don't know how you tag on TikTok, but if you can, we're on there as well. But definitely Instagram, Twitter, fire those bad boys. You know what drink we love a good John Daly, and so do the people. Just our friends at Tito's. It's of all the sponsors and partners we've had, I don't know if anyone has truly quite resonated like this one. This is in all seriousness, we talk some shit and fuck around, but this is a special marriage. Football season. It's just, we couldn't ask for a better partnership. Like if we had to choose, if there was a draft, I don't know how this isn't near the top of the list in the history, like of all American companies. It's perfect.
It is. We're very proud of it. I mean, I think that's part of it, right? As we get a lot of recognition from people because of it. Tito's is a major, legitimate, award-winning brand, and we definitely benefit from the association, and we hope that they benefit from the association too. It's America's original craft vodka. This is the commercial, John. 1995. I mean, who can forget Tito's beverage? Or Tito Beverage, that's the man's name. Built his own distillery, went all in, put his life savings into it, and then just started winning awards. Double gold medal at the World Spirits Competition, the Chairman's Trophy for the world's best vodka tonic, and many others. It's still handmade on the same land where it all started in Austin, Texas. Distilled from corn, gluten-free. Titos.com for recipes, videos, and more. Copper pots. Distilled and bottled in Austin, Texas. 40% alcohol by volume, namely 80 proof, crafted to be savored responsibly.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's so special also about this brand is the price point. I mean, you walk into a Safeway, you walk into wherever you get your beverages, and it's hard to beat. When you factor in the quality and the price, especially in modern day inflation. I mean, you walk in there, holy moly. Tito's hasn't budged. And that's why we love it. My go-to drink for well before I ever met our friends at Tito's was the vodka soda. Now, if it's sunny outside, I will have the John Daly, but you got to watch your sugar intake. Yeah. It's hard to beat a good vodka soda, even a splash of cran to get a little flavor.
Big fan of the ginger beer you can get at Trader Joe's, no sugar. Big fan of the ginger and the Tito's. Happy birthday, 25 years, 25th anniversary Tito's as well. So we'll be doing stuff with them this season. Appreciate your support and making sure that Tito's felt the love and felt like being a part of Handmade.
I feel like people drink a lot during football season, guy. It's like, Friday afternoon, Saturday, all day watching football. Sunday, why not? I mean, it feels like there's a lot of drinking that goes on. You could argue just all in America all year long. But football season brings out the drinkers. I don't really slow down much in the summer, but we got to work. I don't do it as much in the fall, as much fun I have in the summer, but I know you people do. And tag us.
I mean, you would say your tolerance probably at its annual highest post summer, right?
Yeah, it peaks I factor in August. I saw Portnoy go on a rant. He gets very angry. Everyone wants to shove August to the side. Like summer doesn't end till, or like football season, we're still, I mean, we're going to training camp and stuff, but it doesn't start till September 11th. You know, we got some time here. August is a summer month. Sun's out. We got time. We got to enjoy the summer.
Are they in school yet? Are the kids in school in August?
No.
It's still summer.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Kids are everywhere. You ever just go outside? Fucking everywhere.
Well, Elon says not enough of them. That's why he's doing his part.
I know. You see his dad says he likes the brother more than Elon.
His dad who's having a baby with the stepdaughter?
Yeah, I saw someone's like, are you even allowed to comment when you're doing nefarious? Like, I'd keep quiet, Mr. Musk.
All right, John, so much to talk about. We just went to Niners practice today. I think the first thing before we dive into what we saw is that it's a big deal. And it feels like a big deal. It feels we've been around teams. You've worked for teams. We've been around teams with high expectations. We've been around teams that don't matter. You can tell the difference. It feels different.
Was that a shot at the Raiders guy?
Nope.
We were there with Chip Kelly Niners.
They've only made me money in my life. They didn't cost you any money. They've only made you money in your life.
That's true.
Take a shot. But it felt like a big deal today. At one point, they brought all the Niners practice as two fields for those of you who haven't been. Stands packed, people sitting on the grass on both sides. And then when they decide what field they're going to practice on, they bring everybody out of the far side stands and they bring them onto the field in between. And so the field is surrounded. It's like between the hedges, being between the hedges at Georgia. I mean, it's a cool environment for the first practice with pads, August 1.
I think when you go to a practice like that and you think back to the days pre-music, pre a bunch of people in there, which for the 49ers wasn't that long ago. You know, I mean, there were not fans and there definitely was no music Jim Harbaugh days when they had really good teams. It would be hard to create the same energy. And I get it, old school people, but there's to me as a player or as an assistant coach, like I would like the energy of the crowd, the music. It just adds juice and flow. Now you could argue it's early in training camp no matter what, but I think it adds an oomph. I'm with you. I mean, I think they're easily their roster on paper is one of the best. The quarterback, we'll get into him, but just non-quarterback, it's a top 5 roster in the NFL. Now, obviously, that position matters a lot, but you feel it out there. I mean, they got star players everywhere, and just star players under contract in their prime. Not a lot of question marks with impact players, right? They don't have any.
At one point, we looked over, and behind, standing off by themselves for 2 minutes, was Nick Bosa and Trent Williams talking one-on-one, going through. You know, I think Nick was asking, and it started with Nick asking Trent a question about a move, and Trent kind of showing him his move or his defense or whatever. And I said, I hit you on the shoulder. I'm like, look at this. And you're like, is that what it looks like when Steph Curry and Kevin Durant talk to the Warriors practice? Right? Like those two guys talking to one another are maybe the best at each of their positions in the NFL, right? I think a lot of people think
Trent is for sure.
Nick could be he's going to be on the short list. I mean, if we could go to DraftKings, look at the odds, Defensive Player of the Year odds. But he's going to have
Garrett, Aaron Donald. That's short list of star defensive players. Michael Parsons.
There aren't a lot of teams where Nick Bosa could drop in and talk to his equal on the other side, or where Trent Williams could find his equal on the other side and talk to him. And then actually a few minutes later, Trent and George Kittle were having a similar kind of interaction, just one-on-one, where you've got these guys at a very high level who have peers, right? You want your great players to have peers because it means you have more than one great player. And the great players on the Niners have peers.
That's a good thing. Peers everywhere. I mean, their linebacker group, we'll get into it probably a little later, looks fantastic. It's not, I mean, Bowman and Willis is hard to top. You could argue it's borderline untoppable. But the trio of the 3 guys they roll out as their starting Mike, starting Will, and starting Sam linebacker, I mean, the way they move, the way they look, the way you know they can play. I mean, all 3 of them, their physicality, their speed, their athleticism. It's very, I mean, Willis and Bowman were so ahead of their time because they were so physical, yet they could move and they could cover. You know, Fred's the biggest of the 3, but the other 2 guys, you have to just have the range. Like their team's speed all over the field right now is is impressive. I mean, they got team. Let's face it, football in general, like college is a little different, but like ultimately what makes Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia, the top 3 or 4 teams every year so awesome is they have the physicality and the team speed, right? It's like Notre Dame will match up with them. They have the physicality, but they never have the speed. Oklahoma matches up against them. They have the speed, but they never have the physicality. Because Alabama, Ohio State, and Georgia, and occasionally there's another team, but Clemson did have a moment, and they still might be that level. You got to have it all. In the NFL, for sure, you got to be physical and you got to fly. And that's like, you would say the Niners last year, why did they beat the Cowboys? They were way more physical than them. Why did they beat the Packers? Because they were way more physical than them. Why did ultimately the Rams they're kind of their equal. Like the Rams have no problem, led by Aaron Donald, getting into a heavyweight fight, and they have the team speed. And that is the Chiefs why have they been so good for so long? Elite team speed, but they also could throw some haymakers when their defense was playing well. So that is, if you're going to win a Super Bowl, you have no options. You have to be good at both. You got to be physical all over the field, but definitely on defense. Be physical and have a physical run game because you got to have different pitches, and you have to be fast. Like ultimately, like the Bengals were so explosive outside. They probably weren't as physical on defense, but their offense, when it peaked, was just so fucking awesome. That won't be a problem for the Niners because I don't think it'll be quite like that.
I think the one other thing you see in college at the elite level that's harder in the NFL is you have the depth, right? You've got a junior, and then you've got Marvin Harrison, Jackson, you have Jackson Smith and Jigba, you have Olave and Wilson, and then 1 or 2 of them is out. And, I guess we'll play Marvin Harrison Jr., who turns out to be a star, right? Only a handful of college programs can do that. In the NFL, you don't really have that because you got limited roster size and salary cap and that kind of
thing. You are more predicated on health, I would say, in the pros than even like Alabama, Ohio State, and Clemson. Like a lot of most programs are predicated on health. The elite of the elite, like their backups are still incredible.
Well, if I told you that, what's his name? Will Anderson was it Will Anderson, the linebacker at Alabama?
No. Yeah. I think it's Will Anderson.
If he was like, guys, I'm out this year. Like, oh man, that sucks. Maybe the number 1 pick out. I think Alabama
would it change their title odds?
They'd still be the favorites, right?
Yeah.
So maybe in a small way, but not in any major way.
But if I told you Nick Bosa was no longer in the Niners, what would you say?
That would be a dramatic issue for them.
Yeah.
Well, we'll talk about their defense today. Let's talk about Trey Lance's day. That is the number one thing that everyone watches for when they go to a Niner practice. And, one of the headlines so far leading up in the first week before pads came on was interceptions. There were a lot of them. There was another one today in the red zone. But interceptions, watching it play out, it's not that other people get the ball. Even I think today there was one for him. But it's that it's hard to find where the play actually would end in a real NFL game. But most times it feels like it would end before it ends in these practices. That is to say, the ball is not coming out quickly with the Niners offense right now.
Yeah, there was a red zone period, which was pretty terrible. And I think my number one takeaway once they got into team periods was this guy is a major work in progress. Same things that we said last year when he played games. And we had a lot of people, I'm not making much of the comments, were very angry. Now, granted, everyone witnessed the games, right? The Arizona game and the Houston game. I think our 2 takeaways were much more bearish than a lot of people. And it was simply because of the bar. Like the thing is, when we're critical of Trey, and being critical of a guy who needs a lot of work is not being critical when the guy has played 1 season in college, started 2 NFL games. Every fucking player would need a lot of work in that situation. Most star players get a lot of reps in college. Like, let's use the Niners' best players. Trent Williams started at Oklahoma for 3 years. George Kittle, pretty sure he was a 5th-year senior at Iowa. Nick Bosa, several-year starter at Ohio State. Fred Warner, played a lot of games at BYU. All their guys had a ton of reps by the time they got to the pros. That is not the case with Trey Lance. Ayuk is the guy with probably the most limited reps because he was a junior college transfer, and it has taken him till year 3 for Kyle to be like, I feel very good about this guy. Now, he had moments in year 1 and 2, but it was an up and down road. The difference at quarterback is Ayuk, for example. He ultimately, when he gets his route called, just has to worry about his route, getting open, potentially the corner and the safety, depending on the coverage. It might just be him versus the corner. Trey, so let's use the red zone, for example. The red zone's hard. Why? The field is much wider than it is long. You just don't have as much room. It's the one area where the defense, the field works to their advantage. And things happen very fast, and you don't have much time. And you could argue, and I've seen this on social media, and I think it's fair, the Niners statistically had one of the better defenses in the league. They are easily going to be one of the better defenses again. So it's not playing a shitty NFL defense. But he had multiple series today where it looked like that would be a 3 if they passed every down, which they would not, and that's part of it too. They have a coach of all the good NFL coaches, right? Of all the good teams that are going to compete to make the playoffs, them and the Ravens want to run the ball the most. Their offense going to look a lot different, Lamar, but you would say them and the Ravens, stylistically, again, stylistically it looks different. Philosophically will be the same. Play great defense, shove it down your throat. Now, Lamar is a way better passer right now than Trey Lance. That's not what I'm saying, but they want to rush it 30 times a game and kick your ass on defense and beat you like 28-7, right? That's what Kyle, they're not looking, Andy wants like 50 a game, right? The Ravens want to overpower you. That's what Kyle wants to do. But like ultimately football, and when you're playing the best teams, get in the red zone, you got to be good, and you got to be good on passing downs, which are second and third and long. You know?
This is going to sound...
And that scenario right now, by far, and most young quarterbacks, is the biggest area of concern for him as a player.
What we're describing right now is not some debate. Like, that's what happened today. What John just described was what happened.
This is not opinion. These are facts. It was a struggle.
It was bad. It was bad in the red zone. Not because he turned the ball over, but because actually the one turnover, Kyle Juszczyk was running open, and Trey was out of the pocket and looking and finally got to Juszczyk late, and Trevarius Ward had been able to close the gap and dove and intercepted the ball.
Well, because in the red zone, you got to be, your progressions at the 50-yard line, you got a little more time. In the red zone, it's probably, I bet an offensive coach would tell you it's 3x sped up. So Kyle Juszczyk, you got to be over there at half the time that maybe you normally could in the middle of the field. Because the timing, he has the sideline to work as his advantage because Kyle can't create depth, right? There's not that much room. You can't layer your offense. Right. And that's the Niners. When Jimmy's had success, right? It was like layered. It was Kittle, Deebo, Ayuk kind of layered throughout the field. Well, you can't layer it at the 6-yard line because you got 14 yards to work with. Or that's bad math.
4-yard line, you'd have 14.
Yeah.
At the 10, you'd have 20. Yeah. I mean, but, I think, and this is going to sound kind of glass half full. I don't intend it to, but I do believe this. If we went to practice today and the reports were Trey Lance is dominating the Niners defense in the red zone, I think that would be worse for the Niners than the reverse. And the reason is because of what you described. Because this team is built to have its defense help lead them. In fact, Trent Williams said after the practice today, our defense took us to the NFC Championship game last year. This team is built to do what you said. Because the team is built to be if they were built to be the Chiefs, then it'd be a problem if their quarterback isn't showing that he's going to be able to carry them with his arm from the beginning of the season. But that's not how they're built. So the Niners need their defense to be fantastic, first and foremost, and then they need to backfill with some of what Trey Lance can do to accent the run game. And the reality is Deebo was not at full reps on Monday yet, right? So it's not like it's Deebo and Ayuk and Kittle and Elijah Mitchell on every snap for Trey Lance all the time.
Was Juwan Jennings out there?
Juwan Jennings was out there. In fact, Trey did not throw him the ball at one point in the back of the end zone in the red zone, and Juwan Jennings kind of shook his head for a second.
Well, he's a guy. He's going to be there. I mean, from a red zone size-wise, non-Kittle, he's their biggest wide receiver by a country mile of the guys they're going to play, right?
Yeah.
Even though Ayuk has a big catching radius, and he had a sweet catch today on a play that probably doesn't exist in real football, and that's the hard part, right? I mean, it was a sweet catch, but like Cray's probably already sacked by then or running away.
It was a Trey rolling left across his body, Ayuk high pointing a line drive in a jump ball with Trevarius Ward at the front of the end zone. Ayuk also had a great high point on a front pylon fade against Jimmy Ward in one-on-ones, and then he had a 40-yard catch over the top with actually Nick Bosa kind of came up the middle and was bearing down on Trey, but can't hit him. Ayuk and I think it's pretty clear Ayuk and Trey Lance, I don't know if I want to say they have the best chemistry, but the most trust, the balls that Trey just lets rip, it's Ayuk by and large, at least today, that was going to get them.
I'm not saying, because you can't take away that the Niners have not had the go route for 40, 50 yards down the sideline. I don't worry about that with Trey Lance, right? Like they're backed up on their 30, throwing a bomb. Like that, to me, the red zone and areas where you got to be quicker, right? Like you might throw that bomb on 1st and 10. So the defense doesn't know it's coming. You don't just always throw that on 3rd and 10, right? On 3rd and 10, when they know most of your guys are working toward the sticks and you got to play a physical / mental game. Again, there's nothing wrong with this. It's part of being a young player, but it's why these next 3 or 4 weeks for him are huge. And honestly, the first month of the season, the reps are big. Like he should be dramatically better Halloween than he is week 2. That's part of the deal. And this is where it goes back to last year. Like I said it at practice, and people, especially in the chat right now on the tube, are going to be like, what? As of today, if the Niners played tomorrow, Mac Jones is a better player than Trey Lance. That's not even debatable. But we said when the draft pick happened. Now, part of it, Trey didn't get to play last year, really. But like this draft pick was for the big picture, for the next several years, for the next decade, the high-end talent. And that is on now Kyle, Greasy, the players around him, Trey himself, to just grow and grow and grow over every rep, every practice. It's cliche, but like you do get better every day, especially when you haven't practiced that much. Like ultimately, Trent Williams is just maintaining. Like he's just maintaining. Even Kittle, like just stay healthy. Trey is like every day I should be taking. You don't need to take huge steps, but like little step here, little step here. Next time I know in the red zone, off cover 4 when the Rover's here, just little shit. I mean, he's in the deep end of calculus right now, right? Against really good players too. It's just going to be hard. But here's the thing. He is playing with sweet players, right? That's where like, it's not like he's playing with a highly paid star wide receiver now. Ayuk, first rounder, who's a stud. One of the highest paid tight ends, who's a star. He's got star weapons. So this gets back to the pressure. You just kind of, you feel it. Again, I'm not saying like he's freaking out every pass, but how could he not his backup is not his backup, but the guy that started last year who's still kind of around. I mean, it's a bizarre situation.
Wait, kind of around or around?
He's around. You mentioned this yesterday on our Deebo emergency pod, and I just thought you were wrong. Because I just thought
you didn't correct me. You just let me be wrong.
Well, because I wasn't quite sure, but I thought Jimmy was like showing up before practice, getting sent home. Clearly, that you knew that wasn't the case. Mayoko's like, yeah, bro. Like a couple days ago, he was like running while practice was going on. Very bizarre. And I'm like, listen, you guys have been around the NFL longer than me, but I feel like since I've been in it, around it, this is an unprecedented situation. Him and Cam Inman laughed. They're like, yeah, this is unprecedented situation.
And those guys have seen it
for since the 90s. But when you look
young.
Yeah, still both of them look fantastic. But part of it is like they don't just compare the Niners. Like when you cover a team, like you pretty understand the league. Like, guy, I've been saying this over and over. This is not abnormal. This is unprecedented. When you go all in on the young quarterback, the old quarterback is done, but he's still around. He's still around. It's crazy. Honestly, it speaks probably more to Jimmy than anything because 99% of people would draw a line in this because there would be bad blood.
I think one thing is clear. Garoppolo is an all-time teammate, team member, whatever you want to call him.
Maybe also just hates confrontation, like doesn't want weird stuff.
Yeah,
I think it's a pretty easy one. If Rap Sheet tweeted right now, Jimmy Garoppolo has told the Niners, release me.
Yeah.
Like that would just create immediately some urgency to them and create something. He ain't doing that.
Yeah, I mean, we go back and forth on
that. You
that.
keep thinking it's nothing. If he says that, it creates like you kind of like, what are you going to do? Are you going to be the asshole? Like they don't want to do that either.
But to your point, they may do it anyway. But I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo telling them, they know he doesn't want to be there anymore. I don't think him. Not that we're going to argue about this again. I've stated my case.
But it's easy. It's easy to do nothing when you know he doesn't care. It's easy to like get a divorce, let her live there. If she lets you bring in your girlfriends, it's another thing. If she kicks you out of the house, like he's cool with you doing whatever you want.
Yeah, but they can just tell him, fine, you've demanded your release. You can just not show up here anymore. But they're going to do it on their timeline. I think they've shown that over and over and over.
You don't think if he demanded his release, they would release him immediately?
No.
See, I do.
Why would I don't understand. Again, I don't want to get sidetracked by this, but I don't understand what changes because he demanded it. If they tell him just don't show up anymore, because I do think I don't think they're going to ride him to the end of the preseason. So
I would ride him as long as you want if he's cool with it. My old take has always been, I think, like, God, it's just business 101. Like, you just demand a release. But if he ain't going to do it, you just ride it until you got to, because there's no urgency. You're not paying him anything.
On Trey, the 49ers last year were fourth in the NFL in touchdown percentage in the red zone, 64%, fourth best in the league. Buffalo, Tampa, Seattle, and the Niners, and then fifth was the Chargers. Jimmy was in a four-way tie for 11th. So really it's like, 16th players, but 11th in terms of the ranking in red zone touchdowns with 15. So Tua, Jimmy, Teddy Bridgewater, Russell Wilson threw 15 red zone touchdowns. So what does it tell you? I don't have the rushing numbers in front of me, but that the Niners created red zone scores, right? In part on the ground, but I would imagine I'd love to watch a cut up of Jimmy's red zone touchdown throw.
I would also guess that some of the higher touchdown passers, the Brady's, Stafford, Rodgers, threw a higher percentage of touchdowns outside the 20 than maybe Jimmy.
Brady and Stafford threw 32 red zone scores each.
Wait, you said Jimmy had 15?
Yeah.
Oh, so okay, never mind. They're really high.
So everybody, right, just eats in the red zone.
Oh, okay. So like, what's Rodgers?
Rodgers was 30 red zone touchdowns.
Oh, so the top guys are just crushing in the red zone.
Herbert and Allen 29, Mahomes 24.
Oh, okay. I misheard
but
you.
But the Niners are at the top of the amount of time when they go in the red zone. They score touchdowns 64% of the time, which is fourth best in the NFL.
Well, the difference I would say of the Brady, Allen, and Herbert, like the Niners run the ball in a lot. Those teams are throwing it. And why wouldn't you? Right? It's like, why do the Warriors shoot so many threes? Well, they got great three-point shooter. Why do you pass it at the 10-yard line? Well, we got Tom Brady. We got Aaron Rodgers. It's like, I trust this guy to throw a touchdown. Like, ultimately, the Niners, I mean, they score a lot of within the 5-yard line rush touchdowns because he'll run it 4 straight times. Right? That's the other thing. Now, he won't just shove it up the whole time, but he will run 4 different run plays at the 7-yard line and punch it in. Which is smart, which, again, is what he'll do again this year.
Jimmy had 11 carries in the red zone. Jimmy had 3 carries in the red zone last year for 3 touchdowns. Right? Trey Lance is going to have more than 3 carries in the red zone this year.
That's true, too. That's an area out here that, like, he won't. But I also think you saw him. There was one run play today where he ran outside, and I almost got killed. Because a linebacker, because again, they have to take angles where they know they can't hit, so they just kind of run straight. It's not totally real football, especially when it's the quarterback. I would say any offensive player because they're not going to tackle him. Is that do you really? Part of it was you get a front row seat. It's pretty cool. Sometimes you and I were talking about it, like we're just on the sideline, like basically a front row seat. Like it's pretty sweet. You just take hellacious shots if you're a running quarterback if they get you. Now Lamar and Kyler are like. Is close to ungettable as they get because they're so quick and so elusive. That's not Trey style. Trey is a bigger, he's still athletic, but he's not, I wouldn't call him as an explosive runner for NFL standards. Quick, but
it's a good point. Like this was one of the things we won't really get to see until they play the Bears week 1. That was one of the questions last year with him. He was an uncomfortable runner. We talked to Dante Whitner about it too on the show. Remember, like Trey was uncomfortable in space as a runner. Now design runs different story, but like when it came time to figure out whether to slide or to try and go to the sideline or to try to take on a defender or to try to stiff arm or to try to juke, it felt like he was caught in between all of those things.
Which was understood, right? It's like the first time like an animal touches water, they kind of put their paw in. He had never.
It's a good one.
An enormous jump from the little guys he was playing to the Arizona Cardinals. And I think right away he realized, like, God, is Budda Baker faster than me? Is Isaiah Simmons? And he kind of felt his way. Where Cams and the Lamars and the Kylers just had come and they just came right in and they just figured it out on the fly. Trey was like thrown in midseason. To me, that's an area to keep an eye on. Like, does he keep feeling his way out, or is he much more of a confident runner? Or is he just not really as much of a runner as we were going to think to begin with, which I'd be fine with. Like, ultimately, when you think about Deshaun Watson and Russell Wilson, athletic guys who are pass first guys, they're not. Russell a little bit super young, but it was always kind of sliding. He was not just taking off all the time. Deshaun too, for athletic guys, because you know why? I think they would tell you this is like, actually, I'm not quite as fast, like relative to human beings I am, but like Aziz Al-Shire fucking run me down backwards, right? And then he'd hit me. Think how many D linemen over the last 5-6 years have come in running 4.7s. What's Kayvon run? I mean, these guys, every guy can fly. Bosa runs down quarterbacks with ease. Aaron Donald can fly. I mean, these D linemen, let alone all the linebackers, there aren't the big burly middle linebackers anymore. Fred Warner's like a normal linebacker now, right? I mean, all these linebackers look like the Greenlaws. Those guys can run, like run. So to me, I wonder if the Trey Lance 15 years ago, relative to a lot of linebackers, a lot faster. Nowadays, think how many hybrid players like Isaiah Simmons just constantly coming in the league.
Do you remember last year, the Ohio State-Oregon game? Kayvon was out.
And yeah, the shootout.
And
the Rose Bowl.
No, not the Utah.
Ohio State, Oregon.
Game.
Oh, yeah,
Oregon.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember, but Oregon had a defensive end, and they had some injuries who they moved to tight end in that game, and he caught like the third down conversion play late. And then he had a big play at the end of the game to end the game. I think he hit the running back or the quarterback, whatever.
I remember a back-breaking play to a tight end.
With like big guy with dreads.
Yeah.
Cut his hair. His name's DJ Johnson. He's like one of their pass rushers again this year. I heard might be the fastest guy on their team. His GPS number was 23 miles an hour. But he's massive, right? He's humongous. He is the starting defensive end for the Oregon Ducks. Now I don't know what he's going to end up being as an NFL draft pick, but that's a college player, right?
But like
that's what you get at the highest level. Trey wasn't playing those guys in college.
But I even think like 20 years ago, I remember when I got to Fresno, Richard Marshall would come back, and maybe this is when my cousin was on the team, and he would come back and he would tell the story to like all the Fresno guys of he went to Carolina, and Julius Peppers in the offseason wouldn't run with the linemen. He would run with the DBs and wide receivers. And Julius for a long time was like all-time outlier, him and Javon Curse. It doesn't feel like a lot of like the Myles Garrett's, that type guy. They're all, and we're talking linemen. I'm not talking the linebackers.
Robert Kimbichi today?
Yeah, I think the amount of team speed now, because the game is more spread out, like ultimately Kyler and Lamar are so athletic and so fast. They would be fast against no matter who. You could be 17 Greenlaws out there, right? Or, that Kayvons or whoever. But like, I think Trey Lance is a good example of like, you're a 4.7, 4.8 guy, fast relative to a lot of players historically, but the league has never been faster. So your speed helps. Like Jimmy could not run. Like Jimmy was never a threat to even run really for like 7 yards. You have that. To me, that's a huge advantage, right? Yeah. Just nothing there. Just can you get up and get 6 yards, first down? Like occasionally like Dak.
I think the question
younger Dak.
Yeah, I think the question with Trey, one of the questions with Trey is, will enough stuff go right around him because of his run game, because the players he has, because the defense, because what Kyle asked him to do and the things that they scheme for him, that he doesn't get scarred by some of the struggles of maybe not seeing it as quickly as he will when he becomes a more experienced player? Meaning, what happens when he doesn't see it right now? Does he panic and take off, or does he continue to try and be a passer first? I don't know. But I think it's important that the Niners play with leads, run the ball effectively, so that he's not put in these spots where he has to make the play that only works for right now right? Which is tuck it and run and just don't get sacked and get 3 yards, at the expense of what ultimately you want him to overcome some of those struggles, figure it out. It's okay if he throws a couple of picks because we're running the ball and our defense is good and it's not going to turn into touchdowns. And he really learns the way ultimately they're going to need him to play, the way the best quarterbacks play, passing the ball first and then using his legs as a secondary weapon.
Do you think trying to break him in, having two joint practices with two separate teams would have been a lot to put on him? It probably makes sense to just do the one joint practice and have a couple week kind of lead in of just letting him feel out to be the lead guy for a while. Because a lot of teams now do two. Remember, we went over it the other day. A ton of teams do two. Yeah. Niners just do the one. You could argue then you got so much other stuff going on. Maybe it's the right mindset to just have like basically these 3 weeks of practice before and a preseason game before the Minnesota week. So he gets to build up a lot of reps.
I mean, you're not going to play, like I wouldn't play him in the preseason. You wouldn't play him in the preseason. I don't think.
No snaps?
The more I think about it, the more I think I'd give him no snaps.
Well, Trent's not playing a snap, right?
Yeah, no, you would think not. Now
you do coming off injury, probably not either. Are you putting him with backups?
No.
In a preseason game. It might
he's
inevitably
played
happen
in the regular season. So the preseason is not going to give him more than the regular season's giving him. And so what are you putting him out there to do exactly? I wouldn't be in I would say we're not putting him in the preseason, but whatever.
Would you play like Kinlaw, Deebo, or not Kinlaw? But, no, I meant Fred Warner, Bosa, Trent, Kittle, Deebo. Those guys are all, you're putting them on the McVay LaFleur plan, right?
Yeah, I'm all in on it. You've been on it for a while now. I'm all in on it. And that's where the joint practices are really valuable, right? I think joint practices will be valuable for him given that we think this defense is pretty good. Will joint practices be a little easier for him? Maybe. You know, I don't know. I think it'll help by the time you get there that Deebo's running with the one team all the time. But yeah, I just clearly it's going to take some time. And this is why it's better to be on a good team than it is to be on a bad team if you're a developing quarterback.
Well, here's the reality, guy. It's August 1st. You have another 40 days before you even play a game. And I think this is where, when the schedule came out, we're like, it's a lot better if you have an easier landing spot and you get one of the worst teams in the league immediately. And then I think it's Carolina Panthers. Is that week 2? Or is it Atlanta? Seattle at home. So it's the Bears, Seattle, 1-2.
Yep. At Denver, Rams, at Carolina, at Atlanta, KC, at the Rams.
So I like the start of the season. Jamal Adams, you see his fingers are all messed up.
Jamal Adams and the Seahawks probably picked to finish 4th in the NFC West. Yeah. Corey on the stream says we should also hold the offensive line accountable. Yeah, I mean, they got to figure out who their center is. They had some Spencer Buford, their 4th-round pick out of UTSA, John, the Roadrunners, once of Larry Coker, playing some right guard with the one.
I do not. And again, I mean, you would rather have Larry Allen or, whoever, the great Quentin Nelson for sure. I'm not acting like top guards don't dominate, but most people aren't top guards. And Ryan Wendell started in a Super Bowl, so you could have.
What point are you proving to the masses with that?
My point is like
right guard.
Well, no, he was an undrafted free agent, but he started for like 5 years with Tom Brady. The guys that started
smart.
But I'm just saying, like, guys like that have a lot of success at center and guard in the NFL historically. Start for years. Brunskill. You can win a ton of games with 3 Brunskills. Center, 2 guards. And that's not even the Niners. The Niners drafted a guy from Notre Dame, Aaron Banks, who was repping in there right next to, was it McGlinchey or Trent?
Trent.
Playing right guard. So.
Wait, you talking about right guard or left guard?
Or he's left guard right next to Trent, right?
Yeah.
Beautiful. So you invested, like, ultimately he's a 2nd-round pick. So boom, you got a 2nd-round pick, you got Brunskill, and you got a 4th-round pick. Like, that should be good enough. Yeah. I'm sorry. I don't get caught up as like, who's going to be the guards? I don't know. You should have fucking 10 of them and figure out who the best ones are and coach their ass up and figure it out. And develop one into a good player in a couple years who's getting paid. Like, that's what good coaches do. And that's why I have confidence that they can do that. Any guard on a given week can get smoked by some of these sweet D tackles because there's a ton of them. like Buckner and Armstead, Fletcher Cox. Like, yeah, you're going to get beat everyone. Obviously, Aaron Donald. But, you should be able to have some randos. And that's part of the deal. I mean, they have a $22 million left tackle, and they have, it is a long time ago now, but I mean, he was a ninth pick in the draft. I mean, it's just.
And look, if he starts and is healthy, they're fine.
Yeah, just be functional. And he'll get beat every once in a while, right? It's inevitable. But and this is why Trey's athleticism does matter, because he's going to have to ad-lib a little bit. Because, again, back when I get to these random offensive linemen, Banks isn't necessarily, but they're going to have, whether it's the fourth rounder, whether it's Brunskill, whoever ends up being their other guard and center, I'm assuming Banks is going to start, because if he's not, that would be a pretty big red flag, right?
Yeah, I think it's safe to say. I heard Trent Williams say today he's lost weight, added muscle.
Yeah. Trent, and so you got Trent right next to you. If anything, he can just lend a hand, right? Just throw the right hand over there. Like you got to make do. Like, it's just you don't get you don't get Deebo, Kittle, Ayuk, and then 4 of your 5 guys are Trent Williams. That's not the way it works, guy.
Right.
I know you're not saying that, but I hear this a lot.
It's a good point.
It's like you have all these other sweet players all over the place. Yeah, we got some question marks at center and guard. Like, so do a lot of teams. Until and this happens all the time. When I worked for the Eagles, like, who's this little center? A decade later, Kelsey's a Hall of Famer. And I'm not saying the Niners have some future Jason Kelsey, but that's the way offensive linemen at guard and center historically work, right? It's like, where'd you find this sweet guard? Oh, we actually got him in the 5th round, and now he's an $18 million player. Happens all the time.
Well, I think it's also important to remember that the Niners have been operating to this point in a way that they'll continue to operate from Kyle Shanahan's standpoint, whereas he is not going to his quarterback, taking the reins off and calling the play and then letting the guy do whatever he wants. Like, if Shanahan's going to have to account for Trey Lance's inexperience this year, he's had to account for Jimmy Garoppolo's limitations in the previous years, one of which is immobility, right? So, not that Jimmy's a complete stiff, but it's plays end with him trying to get out of trouble and not being able to do it. So this is on. It's part of this is on, again, one of the highest paid coaches in the NFL, Kyle Shanahan, to create for his quarterback just in the way he did with Jimmy Garoppolo. That is part of his job.
But the one thing why these reps are so big, because part of it, let's just use some recent young guys that have come into the league, right? Good players. I'm starting with Mahomes, but then to some of the, Lamars, to Herberts, to all these guys. Like, part of it is ultimately you are allowed to kind of ad lib once the play breaks down, because you have the ball in your hand if you want to take off. And it kind of comes down to, like, you would say a lot of those guys have really good Deshaun Watson, incredible instincts, Russell, right? Instincts of just like keeping play alive and like eyes in the back of their head. Well, how do you develop instincts? You're not just born with the ability to, like, well, I know when this guard kind of gets smoked, I got to move. It's just reps. And a lot of these guys got a ton of reps in college, several years starting. You watch Trey, you go, in fairness, like, the North Dakota State is a powerhouse 1AA program. They are the Alabama of 1AA. But if he had started there for 3 years, you'd feel like, he just has a lot more. He just doesn't have that many repetitions. Like, and to me, that's how you develop great instincts over time, is just repetitions. And a lot of these guys that come from big time colleges, you're like, God, I got 4 years, my redshirt year, and then my 3 years starting of just reps against dudes every day at Iowa, dudes every day at Florida, dudes every day at Texas Tech or wherever I'm playing, but like Power 5 Division I guys. And that just wasn't the case for him as a player. So it just gets back to, he's just one of the most unique test cases in recent memory, right? Like, Mahomes kind of was, but he was a several-year starter in the Big 12.
Not unlike the challenge that Kyle Shanahan had when he added Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, I know it sounds crazy because Jimmy had been in the league.
Jimmy played a lot more, though, in 1AA, right?
Yeah, Jimmy had played college football, but Trey Lance has thrown the ball 71 times. He has 71 career attempts in the NFL. When Jimmy Garoppolo showed up, I think we remember Jimmy like he showed up at 29 years old, having played 6 years in the league. Jimmy showed up at 25 years old, having played 3 years in the league, with 94 career attempts. So Jimmy Garoppolo showed up on the Niners with 23 more career attempts than Trey Lance. Now, he'd been in the league and he'd been Tom Brady's freaking backup, right? Bill Belichick's quarterback. I'm not saying they're the same, but I think it's in some ways for Kyle Shanahan, it's kind of the same this is not a complete player, right? Jimmy Garoppolo showed up. He was not a complete player, just like Trey Lance is not a complete player. So let me do the things that a great coach does to help put him in position. This is what every guy says, to make plays. So I don't think this is, I think, a very similar. Matt Ryan was not this way. Not that Matt Ryan didn't have his limitations, but Matt Ryan, a competent offensive coordinator and Matt Ryan would work. Maybe, Kyle Shanahan got the absolute most out of him. But for the most part in Kyle's career, he's been working with quarterbacks who part of what they need is his help.
And again, like I do think college reps matters. Just pulling up Jimmy's college reps for basically, he got to play a little bit in 2010, had 211 attempts, 11, 12, and 13, 350 attempts, 540 attempts, 568 attempts.
So like 1,500 attempts is what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I the first thing I saw when he owns all the records for attempts, for touchdowns. My point is not necessarily about the stats and the numbers. It's just the reps, the live game reps of throwing that this guy doesn't have, which Kyle's kind of working through right now. Of like this, like the number rep he's on, even if you factor in last year, would be like this guy's junior season, if you think about it. Because his one season, because of COVID, got wiped out. I would view him a lot differently if he just had 2 seasons. That season getting wiped out, that's a crazy amount of practice and game reps that I think you're still working through. And last year, let's face it, after the preseason, he kind of got thrown to the side and ran scout team, beside
until
the 2
they
weeks,
needed him.
Until they needed him. And then the 1 week when they needed him, they basically ran his college offense, right? The game against Arizona, like his first game, it was just him kind of running around. Remember that?
16 rushing attempts.
Yeah, so it's like, again, I'm bullish. I always swing for the guy you can mold and coach up, especially when I got a big-time ball coach. And Kyle Shanahan is that. But it's going to take time. And he's very, very lucky. But this gets back to the pressure. This team is not like, well, we're cool just going 9-8 and just being – no, they're paying all these dudes to try to win big. And that, to me, just now it helps there's a 7th seed, but like anything but the playoffs is a fucking disaster, right? Because last year almost was, because it was like, wait, you're just wasting Trey's reps to miss the playoffs. Now, they ended up making it, and then they won 2 playoff games, and it was sweet. Everyone rejoiced. It was awesome. You screwed up the Cowboys and the Packers season. It was awesome. Trent flipped the Cowboys fan off, walking off the Cowboy Stadium. It's a highlight. That picture, that still photo is pretty classic. But now you get, like, ultimately now you're kind of starting back from scratch. And I do think you see right away, and I felt it today, going at OTAs are one thing, and I would imagine the first couple of days of practice are one thing. The difference today is a whole different sport, right? With the pads on, the physics, even though no one's getting tackled to the ground, just the shoving, the hitting, the O-linemen pushing each other. Because they're immediately, and this is, someone mentioned this, like the O-line deserve, for sure, because their body's getting shoved into them. But isn't that football? Like,
yeah. Well, the only thing is the quarterback doesn't get hit, which is like a major part of the position, right? And even then, you can feel stress level goes.
You do get knocked. He get knocked around the pocket a little bit.
Yeah. It's why I thought his first completion when they went 11 on 11, the first throw he had, the first play was actually a run play behind Kittle and Kittle came in motion right to left. Use check. Let's run behind Trent Williams. Remember, you and I have been debating, like, what's the first play going to be? I heard maybe 18-19 Zorro or 19-18 Zorro, whatever it's called. But his first completion was actually defender right in his face. He's got to get it around him to Kittle. And I want to answer this question here. Matt asks, and thank you, Matt. How did Trey's delivery look? Did the ball fly out of his hands Herbert Allen-esque? We would settle for Russell Wilson traits, LOL. I thought watching him in drills and during the live periods, he was better. He was good with his accuracy, the short, gotta have it. This is a gimme layup. Just make the layup throw. I thought he's looked good. I thought the ball spiraled a lot today.
Yeah, I agree.
But it's not, he took one big deep shot and hit Ayuk. It's not Herbert or Josh Allen. But I mean, Herbert would go toe-to-toe. Those guys would go toe-to-toe with Dan Marino and the best throwers in the history.
Who says no first? Trey Lance for Herbert.
Yeah.
But I think to put it into context, and again, this is not the way football works. If Justin Herbert was the 49ers quarterback, what record would you predict?
Yeah, like 14-3, 15-2.
Yeah.
15-2, I think would be my prediction.
Me too.
Anything less than 11 to me for the Chargers is an embarrassment.
100%. But that's what speaks to this team's talent. Like, I think with the work in progress quarterback, they can get to 11.
What do you think of his? Hold on. What do you think of his delivery, though?
Yeah, I didn't know. To me, that didn't notice it hindering him. I'm with you. A couple times on a dump offs, hit the guy. I thought more just I was judging him the day because I didn't. It didn't stick out, in a bad way.
No, yeah.
The speed of everything, how fast you got to get it out. It's just tougher. I mean, football's fucking hard, especially when you're playing a really good defense. And honestly, it might have been hard. Part of this is like no one's acting like Jimmy would have looked better. That's the thing. He's not replacing Josh Allen, right? The bar is in the middle, but there are basic things like the one thing Jimmy does have the ability when he sees it, he can get rid of it fast. Now, sometimes it flies all over the place. He throws picks. He makes poor decisions. I think one big difference this year from a positive standpoint, and we talked a little bit on it, was I do think if there's a little room, he can just scramble to a right or a left, and he's just way quicker than Jimmy, and that creates a little separation for him to either see a guy, keep a play alive, and that'll be interesting. I don't know necessarily his play style. Like, this is what's made I always loved about Watson and Russell is they scramble to throw. They don't scramble to run. Like, Lamar scrambles to run. Kyler can kind of do both, but he scrambles. He can scramble to run, too, because he can get to the first down so fast. I'm fascinated to watch kind of Trey's maturation. Like, is he a scramble to throw guy? Is he scramble to run? There was the one play today where he scrambled to run, which, again, you get 5-6 yards on 2nd and 7. That's a really big deal because then, boom, they can run it for a first down, keep the chains moving, right? Where Jimmy, it's like you didn't want him to scramble at all. Just throw it away, right?
Yeah, I would need to see the tape again, John. I wasn't convinced that the touchdown throw to Ayuk was going to be a sack. I thought that was a scramble to throw situation, but
I wasn't watching back. I was just watching Ayuk.
Yeah. It took just the stopwatch. If you just said sack every whatever the number, I don't know, 2.5 seconds, what's the number? You would have yelled sack a lot. But
5 Mississippis?
5 Mississippis. Even a couple times 5 Mississippis, there would have been a pass rush.
Yeah.
So, good question.
Ayuk was hauling ass down the sideline.
Ayuk
hauling ass.
Ayuk
smoked. Whoever covered, who was that Ward on him? Smoked him.
The deep throw was on Charvarius Ward, yeah.
Smoked him for NFL. Beat him by a step.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. The deep throw was on Mosley. It was on Mosley.
Down the right side.
Yeah, Charvarius was the jump ball kind of touchdown. But the big play under pressure, and it was under pressure, and he stepped up in the pocket, was on. And Mosley
what do you think
was
it's
right
like
there.
As a player to be like, you became a starter on a team that went to the NFC Championship game, and then you sign another corner, and then the other guy's healthy, and all of a sudden, Ambry Thomas, you're no longer the starter.
I don't think he played long enough to make it.
Now, part of DB, and everyone kind of plays. So
like, he's going to play.
Yeah, it's not like a quarterback or a punter where only one guy plays. Like, when the dust settles, he may have the second most snaps, It's a good part about, like, if you're a D lineman, like I saw today, Wagner tweeted, because we were talking before we came on, like, was Kinlaw out there? And he got a scheduled rest day after an off day. A little weird. But it was like, Hyder's getting his reps. And you realize, if you're a D lineman, obviously the stars make so much money. You want to be a star and get paid and get sacks. But even if you're just like a rotational guy, like, you're one season away from being like a $7 million player, right? Because you get at minimum 5 series a game. Like, if there's 10 or 4, I mean, you're repping in a lot. You're getting a lot of opportunities to make plays. It's just like the 4th D tackle. Like, you are not just in on game day. Like, you better know what they're doing. You're playing a role. Because as a fan, you don't, like, it's just second quarter, 4 series. It's like, it's a big series.
Yeah. Guys are going down all the time.
All the time.
And corner's similar, I think.
Yeah. Because
we saw it last year.
The linemen are more likely to, like, get legit injuries where the corner's like hamstrings, a lot of hamstring pulls.
Or you're just out there a lot of snaps. You need some rest. You're chasing somebody around.
Do like my corners to not get out of breath, but it's easy for me to say on the couch.
You're skinny. Why are you tired?
I'm chasing Tyreek Hill all game.
Let's talk about the defense. I mean, a lot's been made of it. What did Richard Sherman tweet? Like, told y'all. He's tweeted like I told y'all like 3 times last week. Anytime the Niners defense had an interception.
I've been DMing with him about Emmanuel Mosley since their Super Bowl season. He loves that guy. Loves him. That's his guy, I think. Emmanuel Mosley. Like, he thinks Emmanuel Mosley is like I bet if you ask him, he'd think he's like going to get $15 million when the season's over as an unrestricted free agent, which is not, he could have a great season. I don't know if he's quite fast enough to get paid, but like if he has a really good season, does he, get second tier starting money? Maybe not Ward, but like 10 million, 7 million,
Yeah.
8 million.
I mean, sure might say fast enough. Like there are exceptions to the rule on fast enough, right?
Wasn't he one?
Yeah, I'm the exception to the rule.
And like Sherman Mosley could tackle and he's got good ball skills. Just one-on-one speed, he's gonna lose to a lot of receivers.
Yeah, I mean,
Ward's big.
Changing his number to 4 feels like that helped. Mosley just looks better in 4.
Yeah,
E-man.
I agree.
Him and Ward on the other having Charvarius, I think probably helps him too, right? Like if I told you Emmanuel Mosley 2 years ago, that's going to be your best corner. A few years ago, you would have said, I don't know. It became pretty clear pretty quickly that he belonged on the field, though, right? So him and Ward and the linebackers, Elshire and Greenlaw and Warner that you mentioned, and Jimmy Ward and Hufanga or Tarvarius Moore, and Bosa and Armstead and Ebukam and Drake Jackson and big-ass Charles Omenihu, who stands out when Armstead's not there as a very tall guy, and all the interior linemen we talked about. And, Kinlaw, we'll see. Trent Williams said afterwards he thinks it's the best defense in the league. We were talking to our buddy Chris Biederman on the sideline, and he's like, they got a chance to be the best defense in the league. And I kind of looked at him like, I don't know. And then you start thinking about it. It's not crazy. I think last year, all the talk, remember, we talked to Joe Staley about it on the podcast. Could this team be better than the 19 team? But I think the question really, and it was Biederman that said it, could this defense be better than the 19 defense, which was obviously had Buckner. Best corner was Sherman. Bosa was an ass kicker already.
I'd say Jimmy Ward was kind of coming into his own. Jimmy's a much better player now. Just an established high-end player.
Linebacker group's more established probably right now than it was then.
It's better now. The D-line is not as good. I mean, they're starting D-line. When they rolled out healthy D Ford, Buckner, Armstead, Bosa's better, but
was already great.
Buckner was awesome.
Yeah.
I think their defense could be really, really good. Their front seven, we noticed a couple times, like Drake Jackson, I think it's insane. And listen, some D linemen get weird character stuff. They can be weird guys. Like, you don't have to be arrested and get in trouble to be a questionable character guy with D linemen. They can just they're just different cats. And sometimes people question stuff, and it's why they become in the draft. Some guys go different spots than others, right? You're like, how'd this guy go pick 50? Because you got questions. But there's a reason, even the worst guys, they don't fall that far. I think it's insane that he fell that far because he had top 20 tape. Now, part of it was his weight fluctuated. I truly believe this. I was saying this to someone out of practice. If you put Drake Jackson the last couple years playing for Kyle Whittingham or Mario, just a consistent program where nothing was changing all the time, and he just got to play, focus on really good defenses, there's no way on God's green earth that the Niners sniff him with that. I mean, it was their only pick, right? Because they had traded for Trey Lance. Yeah, I bet he goes really high. I mean, I bet he's a first round talent. He's quick. He can bend. He's strong. He's athletic as shit.
That's measurables, right?
He's just what you want as a pass rusher. So to me, part of the deal last year was it was incredible what Kasurik did around Nick Bosa with random other ends. How's this guy not going to really help Nick Bosa as just multiple ends coming off? Because that they can create interior stuff with Armstead, Hyder, the randos. I don't worry about the D tackles. He just keeps throwing those guys. It's just guards and centers are kind of average. It is harder to manipulate edge rush. You got to be kind of good to get just most tackles, like most teams pay their tackles a lot of money. And I think he could be an immediate problem, like in a good way for the Niners. And also, like, if Bosa just needs a breath, like they felt like last year a little, you remember some of those defenses with a Khalil Mack on it with the Raiders, where it's like very dependent on him, and rightfully so. When you got a Khalil Mack, you got a Nick Bosa, but goddamn, if you just get him a little help, it's just like, Jesus. I think Drake Jackson could be the curveball on this season of just like, because again, the Willises, the Ebicam, like they have a lot of high energy, high end, Kasurik just pushing those guys. It's another thing to have a high energy, high talent. That's what Bosa is, and he's unstoppable.
Right.
That's what the 19 D line was. Bosa, Armstead, Buckner, Ford, all top 20 picks.
It was blue chip and blue collar,
and kicked ass and took names.
And for everything that Nick Bosa is, and he's a better player probably than, I mean, he's a better player if there's a draft than DeForest Buckner, right? Nick Bosa will go ahead of DeForest. But DeForest is, because of his size, just at the top of the blue chip list of any player I've ever seen in my life. It's hard to get blue chippier than that guy. It's crazy that him and Eric Armstead were on the same NFL team, let alone on the same college team.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're talking about
even why one guy went 7th, the other guy who was an underachiever in college went like, Armstead went like 15th or 16th or 17th. Major underachiever. Eric Armstead easily went top 20.
And now he's become, if you had known he would have the career he's had, would he have gone higher than he did?
I mean, how does he not go like single high 7, 8, 9, 10, right?
We have to go back and look at that draft, but yeah, I mean, so, I mean, what we're talking about on that 19D line is outliers even in blue chip, outliers even among blue chips. Nick Bosa is an outlier even among blue chip guys. DeForest is definitely an outlier even among blue chip guys. But passing league, play with the lead. Your secondary's better, right? So maybe this defense can be the bottom line. It doesn't matter if this defense is as good or is good, better than the 19 defense. The fact is that team went to the Super Bowl because of its defense. And this team has a chance if they're going to win 11, 12 games. I think the first thing will be because of its defense. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
I mean, obviously the run game too, but
again, I think philosophically on those really good Ravens teams, not last year, but the previous couple of years where they were competing to be the 1 seed, hosting playoff games, that's how the Niners want to play. Again, stylistically different. Their quarterback's not going to run like Lamar, but in terms of just run heavy, kick your ass on defense. What's weird, I don't even know, the Ravens have lost a lot of players, but when Biederman said that, I was like, are they going to be better on defense? A healthy Ravens and a healthy Steelers? Feels like I don't know.
He said might. He said might, which is the out.
Wouldn't you say this though? They just need to be a top 5 defense, and that's fine. I'm not looking for the 85 Bears.
If you told me they're a top 5 defense, then I tell you they got a chance to win the division, right?
Well, it's weird. I think some people drop like they were the 3rd best defense last year. It's like, well, their secondary their corners were atrocious.
Every time the ball went, Niners basically, if the ball went in the air more than 15 yards on offense or defense, you held your breath, right? Yeah. Whether Jimmy was throwing it up or it was. I'll never forget. You were there, right? Were you there? Was that the Ambry interception game? Were you there for the Ambry interception game?
Yeah,
you were.
I was.
When the ball was in the air, it's like Odell's over there. Oh no! Right? And Ambry intercepted it. I will never forget that moment. Do you remember that moment?
I do. That was the play I'll never forget in that game is the Jimmy pass to Deebo. Well, the first time when Kyle punted under 2 minutes with 3 timeouts, they get the ball back, and not Jimmy, but Deebo, great pass, best pass of Jimmy's career to Deebo to gain him like 60 yards, and they ended up scoring.
The Jalen Ramsey going horizontal dive.
I think, did Juwan Jennings score that touchdown? I think he did. And then Juwan Jennings scored a touchdown, and they got to overtime.
Was that the double pass?
The double pass was earlier to like tie it or take the lead. It was sweet.
I want to get to this comment because I didn't see it. Somebody said, John or Guy, any chance you can answer my question? Missed your question, so type it again. The chat is going fast and furious. We appreciate your support.
I do think what makes them unique of all the top teams, because ultimately they're going to be discussed as the top teams, right? Tampa, the Rams, the Packers, the Bills, the Chiefs, like they're in the short list of the top teams. They're the only team with a major question mark at quarterback. Of just completely unknown. Part of it is like, we can say what we see in practice, but we all know, we've all got into games. You just, until you see it in games, you just don't know. They're the question mark. It's just a weird spot to be. Now, they're lucky, and this is what I'm going to reiterate over and over, is their coach is, of all the top coaches, the least predicated on it because of his style. They go, hey, Sean McVay. Like, I don't even think Kyle would have thrown it as much. Like, Sean McVay just turned them into a passing offense. Now, part of it, their running backs were hurt, but I think like Sean's Corey kind of like, I kind of want to be more like Andy Reid. Like, Kyle does not. We saw Mike over there. I bet Mike, we couldn't see him because he was kind of far away.
Mike Shanahan, yeah.
Smiled every time that Kyle fucking slammed a run play with Juszczyk and Kittle. Like, that's their family philosophical belief on how to play the sport of football. Run the ball and win a lot of games.
Funny thing is, Mike did it with one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time.
Multiple times. We coached Steve Young, Coach Elway. He did get Elway a little older, right?
Yeah.
Came 95. Got the latter Elway. Would be interesting, like, with the Shanahan family, Elway 87. Like, are they butting heads a little? Or because John interview. John acknowledged, like, I wanted Terrell Davis. Like, I knew I needed this. Like, he had lost a lot of other ways.
John is kind of like Aaron Rodgers, I think, right? Where, like, he was doing whatever he wanted at the line of scrimmage, I think.
Yeah, because he was smart and sweet.
He was fucking with defensive linemen. The thing last year where who was Rodgers winking at before a play? What? Oh, Kuechly. Remember Rodgers was like winking at Kuechly? You remember that clip of Rodgers, like, kind of knowing, like, I know you think you know what's coming, but I know it's coming. Like, did the wink at him.
Kind of forget it.
Was it Kuechly?
Well, Kuechly's retired. He was a scout. But a couple years ago.
I think it was 2 years ago.
No, I think I
thought there was a Rodgers play last year with a star linebacker where he kind of winked at him before the play.
Was that in the COVID year where everything was silent?
Maybe it was. Yeah. But here's a note. Schefter, Deebo Samuel's contract. Deebo will receive $650,000 per year for each year he has 380 rushing yards, $150,000 bonus for 3 or more rushing touchdowns. He maxes out at $650,000 per year in those rushing bonuses and $1.195 million over the life of his contract in rushing bonuses, in running back bonuses. For reference, last year, Deebo Samuel was 8 rushing touchdowns and 365 rushing yards. So actually, I don't know if this counts. Does this count the postseason, you think? Because he would not have eclipsed this yardage total last year in the regular season.
He didn't run for 380 yards in the regular season?
He ran for 365.
Yeah.
Now, if we went per game late, like, that number was higher, right? His averages probably went up or did go up.
Kyle, driving down, I flipped on, he was talking, and he said, if we wanted to move him to running back, we would have talked and done it. Like, I don't think it shows you they view, like, his ability wide receiver, while not, like, he's not some scrub wide receiver. Like, you would be doing him a disservice. Like, ultimately, Alvin Kamara or Dalvin Cook, like, let's just take the top 2 or 3, even Christian McCaffrey, could not be the receiver of Deebo Samuel, right? Like, I think he could be much closer to them than they could ever sniff being him, of, like, playing outside against Jalen Ramsey and getting open. Like, and he can just do that all game. I'm not saying every single rep, but, like, Deebo is a wide receiver first and foremost, who also has these running back instincts. And I think it gets back to, I'm sure, not only high school, but just like college, returning. He feels comfortable with a lot of people in front of him and the ball in his hands. Where I bet, like, like, a lot of wide receivers would not. Like, behind offensive linemen, that's got to be a very foreign feeling to the majority of wide receivers in the league. Maybe, like, in high school they played running back, but a lot of them transition out. So, to me, like, Deebo was smart because a big talking point was, like, is he going to mandate not play running back anymore? why does it really matter once he got money? Like, to me, the whole talking point, and you and I have discussed this over the 6 months, is like, were the Niners wanting to pay him less because they viewed him as a running back? What's his name? New Orleans Saints, when they were bitching and moaning about a wide receiver or tight end years ago. That clearly, he just got the DK Metcalf, Terry McLaurin, like he got sweet young wide receiver money. So it's like, why does he even get you like a running back? I make way more than Dalvin Cook and Christian McCaffrey. And everyone thinks Christian McCaffrey's contract's terrible. His money doesn't sniff my money, right? Zeke, I think, got a ton of money back in the day, like $40 or $45 million. Not this. Not however, I don't know what it breaks down to. You see the APY on these guys is like 24.
Yeah.
Which really, it's a little skewed, right? Because it's an extension. Like this, it factors in his year under contract. So the APY, they give him $58 million.
As long as they don't cut him by April 1st of 2023.
Exactly. I bet he's going to get the majority of cash. What is signing bonus? Like $24 million or something. So boom, of the 58, they've already direct deposited him. I bet in the first 12 months, he'll have made $40 million of the, whatever. That's the way these contracts are always. I wonder if you asked like a contract negotiator, like if you sat down with Parag and like the dude and like Bob Myers and his guy, would you rather have it? Like, does the NFL really benefit from being able to fudge contracts? Obviously, right?
What do you mean fudge contracts? Like just report fake numbers?
Like ultimately, when I give Draymond Green his 4-year, when he got his last contract, 4 years, $100 million, 25. Now it's not, 1 year's 23, 1 year's 26, whatever, but it's all guaranteed. You would always just rather have, 4 years, 100 million, but it's actually only 58, right? Wouldn't you rather always have that? Of course. So when things go wrong, you get out of it.
If you're the team, you mean?
Yeah. If you're the team, not the player.
That's what was like, I saw a lot of that today. Like, Deebo, or yesterday as well. Deebo goes with the short deal so we can get another bite of the apple.
Well, that's what Rap Sheet said. He's in line at 29 for another big deal.
So he wouldn't have taken 6 years and 115 guaranteed? Just double? Which it's true. He is in line. It's true. But I think the Niners, you do a deal with him at this age, you get 4 more years. Although the reality is, if Deebo is producing for the next 2 years, there's going to be another hold-in in 3 years, right? That's usually the way it's like. Deebo is not playing 4 more years of this contract.
If he's maintaining his level of play.
Yeah, there's going to be a hold-in or a trade request or something like that stuff. But they have his prime right now. That's what they got. This is the way you would want to do it if you're an NFL team. I agree. Especially when your quarterback is making less money now than he will be in 3 or 4 years. That's what the Browns
in theory.
We thought about big.
In theory. Let's just get through this first year.
Cap hit this year for Zeke, $18 million.
Sorry.
Next year it's 16. Dead cap is 11.
That contract is terrible.
This might be his last year on the Cowboys.
Zeke Elliott.
Dead cap at 11.8 next year. I mean, if he has a good year, they'd keep him around, but
Jerry, well, I saw Jerry say that he needs to be more of the focus point. Jerry doesn't like his winners. Yeah.
Jerry been studying, watching the tape.
Yeah, eating McMuffins.
With a fork. Did he eat fork and a knife or bare hand?
Do you see? I love Jerry's outfits. He wears like cowboy sweats. He wears a Cowboys polo, but then he has like an long sleeve undershirt. He just his camp outfit is always the same. It's been
Him
the same
and Dan Quinn dressed exactly the same.
Yeah, they are just ready for 95-degree heat and not get sunburned. Don't blame Jerry. I mean, I'd wear the same thing too.
Question on the stream, Guy and John. When Jimmy started last season, we only won 9 games. Why is it that everyone is stating playoffs or failure? Shouldn't 9 or 10 wins be enough, considering a harder schedule? Well, by the way, 9 or 10 wins. 10 wins probably does get you the playoffs in the NFC. Last year, 9, got Philadelphia in, but it didn't get New Orleans in.
If Vince Lombardi came down from football heaven and gave Kyle a contract, he's like, I'm in charge of the football gods. 10-7 right now, would you sign it? Do you think Kyle signs that?
I don't think he does.
Not guarantee. I can't guarantee you if that's a 6 seed, 7 seed. I'm just give you 10-7 and just take your chances.
I mean, I would have to think about. I think.
Would you sign it? Because in the NFC, when you look around, it probably gets you in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean that's what the Niners were last year, right? To the point, Niners were 10-7 last year.
Yeah,
but I think Kyle has said, and I know. Last year was too dicey, and last year was dicey. So I think
10-7 though they only had 9 going into week 18. So it'd be different if you had 10 by week 17, right?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I think it on one hand it feels kind of crazy not to take that with a rookie quarterback, but 10-7 to me is more 9-7 than it is 10-5, the old 10-6, right?
Yeah, I agree.
So I don't think I would take that. I think they might be able to just do 10-7 without a contract. But
part of it is they've invested. They've spent so much money on star players that when you're spending this type of money on premium guys who are good, I think your expectations are just higher. Now, whether that's fair or not, we'll have to see how the quarterback plays. But I think their talent is much higher than 10 wins.
So I agree with that, but I also think if we look back in a year, and
I struggle too with the schedule thing. You don't really know if the schedule's hard or easy. You actually kind of know it's hard because you're playing the AFC West, but you have so many swing teams that this team we thought was going to suck is actually good, right? That happens a lot.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
But if you look back in the year and they made the playoffs at 10-7, I think like a year from now, you'd say for Trey, all things considered, for Trey Lance, that was probably a pretty successful year for Trey. Like how many first-time starting second-year players go 10-7 or 10, whatever it used to be?
More than likely, then you're a road underdog round one, and how many road playoff games are you just going to win? It's difficult.
Yeah. Well, if you're the Niners, a lot. I mean, it's kind of what they do.
Between Harbaugh and Kyle, they've won a lot over the years.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it. Anything else from practice today that needs to get mentioned before we get on to Deshaun Watson suspended 6 games by the NFL's independent arbiter? That piece of news was released on Monday morning. The NFL has 3 days to appeal. Although Roger Goodell has the hammer, John, he can just change the suspension if he wants. There's been an outcry, a demand for Roger Goodell to do it. I don't know what he's going to do, but as someone who thought that Deshaun could and should get suspended for the year, it has felt to me a little bit like the NFL has been setting up its lack of action. Meaning, I think they've made it really clear, and everyone has repeated it, that the NFL pushed for a season-long or an independent suspension of Deshaun Watson. I tend to think that they are not going to add the Deshaun suspension, as crazy as that sounds. And maybe I won't be surprised if they do, because it's such a wild situation. But I think part of what the NFL, what it feels to me like the NFL has been doing, is setting up, this is an independent arbiter. We and the Players Association agreed in the last CBA to have somebody independent do it. The reason we did it is because we don't want Roger Goodell. Roger Goodell doesn't want, the players definitely don't want Roger Goodell to be the one, judge, jury, and executioner. You remember how many times we heard that phrase early on in Roger's, punitive days. And I think it'll be their way of saying, hey, this is not what we wanted. We think it's BS. We think he deserved a season, but got to respect the process. And I think by getting an independent arbiter and by making it so clear that they want a very severe punishment for Deshaun, they can kind of wash their hands of it and say, hey, this is not what we want, but we have to respect the process. Now, the flip side of that is Deshaun Watson is going to step on the field, play Monday Night Football week 9 for the Cleveland Browns. Like, it's not good for Roger Goodell, right?
Yeah, I just think it's such an easy one, guy, for him to just drop the hammer. Why does he care? The league had its best season ever, ratings-wise, money-wise, without him. I'm with you. They want it out for a reason. This is not their decision. It already feels like he's taking a lot of shit. He didn't even do anything. He just passed it off to this chick who wrote, I saw Albright tweet this, in her conclusion, Mr. Watson's pattern of conduct is more egregious than any before reviewed by the NFL.
But she gave him the same. Ben got 6 games, right? Gave him the same as Ben.
I expect Roger to get involved because I think, and honestly, maybe I don't know the guy. Maybe he doesn't even care at this point. I do think it's just an easy one for him to get some credit.
I agree, and I don't understand
because it's not
why
Deshaun. Listen, him and Malgetta and the Browns, they rigged it. So if it stands, he loses $330,000. If Roger gives him the year, he loses $1 million. Like they rigged it. They aren't losing financially. It's not going to impact him one way or the other. He is getting $229 million because he ain't getting suspended for multiple years, right? He's coming back at worst case next year. And as it stands, right now, week 7 or 8 or whenever, is there bye week after the 6 games? Is that why you said week 9? Or
no, I said week 9. No, their bye week is not. So they
comes
play
back
Monday
against
Night
the Ravens,
Football.
I think.
Yeah, he comes back against the Ravens, and then the next week they play Monday Night Football against the Bengals.
Yeah, I'm with you. Do you want, like, I would imagine the NFL is going really well. It's fun. Everyone's crushing it. Ratings are high. Everyone's enjoying it. Positive talks. And then you bring him back where it's like you suspend him for the year. Now, maybe Rodgers' counter would be like, then am I always going to have to do this whenever there's public out? Now, I'd say this feels like a pretty unique outlier situation.
Specifically, sexual assault. I think the league's probably well served to set a precedent that's greater than 6 games. That's the other thing, right? If he only gets 6 games, it's going to be hard for some other person who's not.
But if he let's say Roger adds 4, so now he's at 10. Do you think Roger then would take shit? Because now he's involved, and it's like, well, you only added 4.
Yeah, I mean, to me, Roger either adds. To me, there's no point for him to get involved unless he's going to suspend him for the season.
Yeah, you either kick him out for the year or just be like, hey, we're just going to stick with her moving forward. She's our termination.
Why do you think Roger and the NFL? Why does Roger not want to be in the punishment business?
Because why would you?
Well, I understand. I mean, I get that, I guess, but like ultimately, why does he give it off to an arbiter if everyone still knows that he could still add games?
Because I think the union was pushing for it, and it was just an easy way to give them a win. I think that was a big thing. The union they thought they originally gave in, then they thought it was unfair because a lot of their guys. But listen, it's not apples to apples. And I do agree. Like you gotta make a hard precedent immediately. Like you guys cannot gamble on sports. Like whether he had put 1,500 or 15 million. Like, hey guys, you're playing in the league. There is no gambling. Like I'm in agreement. They had to draw, but Calvin Ridley got a year for placing a $1,500 parlay bet, and this guy got 6 games. Like that's, and again, it's not apples to apples. And
it's not apples to apples. I don't like comparing those two.
But I do think it just shows you, like, people are like, what the hell?
Yeah, I mean, the number one thing the commissioner has, his number one job is to protect, it sounds cliche, but it's to protect the integrity of the product that's on the court, right? I mean, the NBA referee scandal is still a thing. It's still, if everyone watches games still, and it's like, well,
because I believe some of them are on tape.
Well, it's the last thing you can have happen. Right? Like I thought the ref last year, and I was all for throwing the flag on Cassius Marsh, but the ref bumping him is unacceptable, right? The referee goes out of his way to bump Cassius Marsh. That is intolerable. Like that to me is one of the worst things a referee can do. You can't have it. So my point is, I just understand separate the two things. In the grand scheme of life, what Deshaun Watson did is infinitely worse. I mean, it's not even comparable to Calvin Ridley. Like everyone's done what Calvin Ridley's done. But I just can't, to me, they just have to be separate conversations. And even without Calvin Ridley, we can say Deshaun Watson 6 games is pretty tame.
But even like Hopkins is 6 games for the Cardinals. It was like a trace of something I saw. It wasn't even like, it was kind of debatable. You know, you just see all the other suspensions recently. You're like, how did they get? Now, again, that was all Roger. Like Calvin Ridley was not Sue Robinson, right? Whatever her name is, Sue, whatever. I think Calvin Ridley was the NFL.
Yeah.
So why is the NFL? Why are they picking and choosing?
Was he in the old last year? Did this new process just start this year? It's the first time.
It's like, we're not. This isn't even going to our arbitrator.
Hey, question for you. How do you feel about shave it or save it submissions with people who aren't submitting themselves?
Well, do they get like? Is it their brother? Is their friend? Like, how does?
No, like we got tagged in a video of a Niner today.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I don't know. You're the one who's gone through it. I'm sensitive to people who are not asking for the opinion and aren't like.
Is it the quarterback?
No, it's not the quarterback. I can show you. I have it right here if you want to see it.
What position?
Offensive line.
A lot of bald offensive linemen.
Well, I know. I'm just saying, like, if it's Prince Henry, if it's like an uber famous person, I got no problem.
Well, I'm not. Is it Trent? I'm not talking shit about him.
No, it's not him. It's not. It's
McGlinchey.
I don't want to. We got tagged. To me, it's like I feel a little uncomfortable doing it because I really want to treat people like human beings when it comes to shave it or save it. And so I don't want to embarrass anybody when it comes to this subject.
I also think like
very seriously.
There's a line. Like, listen, it's going early. Like, you're going to be fine. You got some time, right? And then there's like Jed. Like, what are you doing, man? Like LeBron. Like, you paint your head. Like, we see it when it's unpainted. Kevin Durant. Like, guys, to me, there's a line of like, you look embarrassing. Someone needs to tell you. And then there's the guy like, oh yeah, you can still be good. Like, I think there's a pretty clear line of delineation. Like, when we got tagged in the Jed talk, it was like, does he have no one in his life being like, what is going on here? What is happening? That you have to admit, that's one of the most egregious hairdos you've ever seen in your life. For a guy that like, no, in modern time too. Not, I mean, we've seen in the 80s, the 90s, the 70s, there were some people holding on. Like, that's pretty crazy that he's rocking that. Pretty nuts. I don't know what his other options would be, but if he doesn't want to shave it, but there has to be some regeneration. Just put on a wig. You can't.
No, you can't go wig.
You can't take that in public.
You can't go wig.
Sometimes I see people and I wonder if wigs, maybe not quote unquote wigs, but just something you put on might be a little more prevalent than people realize.
I mean, they're in movies all the time, right? And most people don't notice.
And I don't even mean like famous people, just like maybe a guy that's like a banker at Wells Fargo, just people that like, I'm not going to go bald.
Right. You shaved your goatee. I didn't notice till somebody said it in the chat. I was looking at your face today. I didn't notice the goatee was gone from yesterday.
You just trimmed it. It was getting,
it's gone. It was a legitimate goatee. And now it's gone. It's
illegitimate. It doesn't quite connect. Again, when I say trim, there's still hair. I cleaned off a manscaper, and there's just still little stubbles. So my mustache isn't thick.
How do we feel about?
You gotta
feel bad
put
about
it in yourself. Famous people, not bad.
No. Hey, I'm not talking about famous people. I'm talking about like third string offensive linemen trying to make or whoever. I didn't. Whatever.
I mean. I would say, guys, here's the other line I draw to. And this is why I'm harder on Jed. Jed's 43. Yeah. At 22, 23, like, I give you a little time, right? Right. I think there's a grace period between like 20 and 25. People say it people make fun of Trey. I think there's a couple other quarterbacks that are like people would say, I give you some grace period. LeBron, 38 years old. Kevin Durant, 35. Jed, 43.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
To me, you get your 20s, you're finding yourself, you're learning about undrafted O-linemen.
I may not realize it yet.
Yeah. I would say early 30s on, give me a break. 40s guy, 40s. Like, I'm sorry. You've jumped. Like, you're allowed to be made fun of.
Chat says it's fair. He's an O-lineman. He can handle it. I'll show John the video offline. We'll determine if we decide it's appropriate. Again, I really want to be sensitive to the human beings. We have a lot of fun with Shave It or Save It, but this is a very personal, sensitive thing. We're all just people. And I don't want to make anybody in that. I'm happy making other people for other reasons feel bad. Although we did get a Shave It or Save It submission.
Do you feel you're privileged? Is that why?
No, it's not that. I just
because look at that. I mean, look at how thick that thing is. It's like, how can you relate?
It's doing well. Well, I can relate in the sense that I'm just a person, and there are things that everybody's, you're confident, comfortable, whatever about yourself at different times. That comes later, especially like you said with younger people.
That's why I give the 20s. I give you a break. I'd even probably go before like 27, 28. I'm sorry, like 38 successful. Like, can no one in your life fucking say anything to you? Your wife doesn't say like, what the hell's going on there?
Yeah. Your barber? How about your barber?
Who's cutting your hair? Like, who cuts Jed's hair? Like, does someone? And when they say, like, oh, it looks good, man. Go Niners. Faithful, baby. Is that what the conversation is? Is it all just fake? Like, do you not have real conversations? Like LeBron, Jed, like those.
I think people are just sensitive to other people when it comes to like really interacting.
I'm talking about the barber. Like, hey, man, we got a couple options here. Like, when you see a doctor, if something happens, like, here are 3 options.
Right.
Like, does anyone, like, when you have a lot of hair, your barber goes, well, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. Or you come in and like, hey, I saw this. Can you do this? Like, when you get to us, and that's me, Jed, LeBron, like, you don't have options. You either grow it out and just be bald everywhere, or you shave it. Like, you get two options.
Joe Buck made a choice.
But again, like, make the choice then. Do it. Yeah, he almost lost the vocal cords.
I was gonna say we got to shave it or save it. Remember, during vacation, we haven't done that. We haven't helped that person yet.
Yeah.
So times are busy.
I would typically lean shave. When all else fails, shave.
Yeah. Anybody else? Anybody get hurt today in camp? I don't. What? What's so funny?
No. I just love our hair talks.
Every day.
I feel like there's been a major like, whoa, towards ACL happened yet? No, it's early. Well,
I saw some early like Max Crosby. I did a you see like a comment and you just do a quick search like like whoo, knock on wood for Max. Nothing happened. His name got mentioned in the chat earlier and it sent me to Twitter real quick for a quick Twitter search.
I never trust this thing.
Oh, by the way, I have to say this because I've gotten, you just say random stuff and you and I talk about it. Like people say stuff to you and you're like, did I say, what are we talking about? Today at practice, guy who's covered the Niners for a long time, back and forth on social, Rob Louder, longtime Niner cover and podcaster comes up to me. He's like, hey, Rob, he went to Fresno State. He lives in Fresno. First thing he says is, Max Verstappen does not drive for Mercedes. And then as I'm at practice, my buddy Paul texts me. He's like, I don't know much, but I'm pretty sure Verstappen is Red Bull.
Yeah.
Honda. Like, I know he doesn't drive for Mercedes. I was doing an analogy on the podcast yesterday about his engine. I thought it was Rob and my buddy Paul both think it's a Honda engine that he drives. But anyway, F1 talk brings people out of their woodwork, apparently. So I'm glad people are on me.
I'm not that deep. Like, here's one. And this is where I always red flag stuff. NFL Network, James Palmer. There is no concern or anything to really worry about with Chandler Jones. Now, I haven't been super locked into Raiders practice, so I read the little blurb, Roto World. It's actually easier to get NFL news, Roto World, than it is Twitter, just because there's so much going on a given day. Like, it kind of just breaks you down, especially injury-wise. I recommend anyone. Roto World, just type it in. It's fucking easy.
Roto Wire? You done that?
I just type in Roto World. It still shows up. It's now called NBC Sports Edge.
But there's also Roto Wire. Anyway, keep going.
And I guess that Jones hasn't practiced. He's missed several days with undisclosed ailment. That's a little patriot-y, right? Undisclosed ailment? You're not practicing?
Yeah, that is weird.
Well, what's wrong? Because he's an older player who's been banged up. Just things like that with older, high-end players. Like, I keep an eye on stuff like that.
No concern, John.
Okay.
Don't even look over here. Nothing to worry about at all.
Wait, Ziegler, Josh, you wouldn't believe us. We come from the place that's the most open and honest place of all time. And I don't blame them
at all.
I guess there's two type people. Those that like don't even hesitate, undisclosed, and just don't break stride. And then like the Kyles and the Andys and McVays, like it's hard for them to lie. They're like, yeah, it's something with his back. We think it'll be fine. I would be in their category because I couldn't keep a straight face, like undisclosed. Well, what is it? Yeah, it's okay. It's just his hamstring's tight. He's working through it. We think he's gonna be fine. I'd always break down.
How about the Steelers for Garoppolo?
These drafted a guy number 20 overall.
Yeah, but they don't. Is he need to start week 1? They got a good team. You said it earlier. Great defense. They got Chase Claypool. They got Pickens. They can run the ball with Najee.
Is there a chance that Jimmy just like, I don't really want to move all my shit out of my place? Like, I mean, what if it's just like there's some basic elements like I don't want to ship my car and like dating this girl and having a good time. Like Kyle, can we work a deal out where I'm just around, and if you need me on call, like I just stay training?
Keep me on retainer.
Yeah, I just maybe hit free agency next year. Like I just kind of like what's going on right now.
Kenny Pickett running with the twos today. Najee Harris hurt. Foot injury. Did the adult sites have a lot of success in the chat? Is that why they keep coming back? Are a lot of people like, they get a lot of traffic when they check? Like, oh, 80% of our traffic came from YouTube comments? There's no way.
This one, an error occurred. Try refreshing the page. You can't even block it.
Because once one of us blocks it, then it, even though you and I see it, it's already been blocked.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, there's no porn on YouTube, right?
It's a link to something else, I guess. Yeah, Najee foot injury, left practice Monday.
That'd be the first kind of big injury. I'd say the Steelers know Najee being
well.
trouble.
Kyler's going to be home rehabbing.
If you're Kyler, even if you got
COVID.
the vid, can you join? Can you be on Twitch playing video games, or no chance?
I mean, what? Imagine being sick and not being able to play video games. What are you going to do?
Watch tape.
I mean, 4 hours. Once you get your 4 hours in, John, you're free to do whatever you want for the week.
I talked to a buddy that thinks they're going to be worse. That, Hopkins is injured, thinks their defense isn't quite as good, thinks their line's pretty questionable. Obviously, they got smaller at wide receiver, though the guys can run. Because I'm tempted to really hate on them.
Oh,
but it's like I've seen them enough to know I do think they got good players some places. Like they're not just some scrub operation when they take the field, right? I've seen them enough to know that you can't be confident just staking your claim like it's gonna blow up 5 wins.
Show.
All of a sudden they're 6-2. You're like, holy shit.
Yeah.
I don't feel confident thinking they're gonna suck. I want them to, but I do acknowledge that if they went 10-7, I will not be surprised at all, right?
Yeah, right.
Because again, it's weird. Like I'm not into him, but he's not one of those I think you guys sucks. I don't think that. Like I watch him enough to know his talent translates a lot, very well, actually, extremely well. I've seen him just eviscerate people, especially the Niners, who he's kind of owned.
Even Colt McCoy came in and owned him.
I even feel like in the losses, I always felt like Kyler was one of the best players on the field.
He just terrifies you on every play. I mean, right? That's the simplest.
And now what? NFC hosts the AFC game this year, so they got 9 indoor games. He's an indoor player, right? I feel he's way sweeter inside. Extra a little quick,
Oh,
something to keep an eye on this year. The NFC flips. Sneaky advantage for some teams last year, right? You get that extra home game.
Yeah,
not that big a deal, but it's not nothing. Well, I think
they lose it. They lose a home game with Mexico City this year, Arizona.
Good point. I think the Niners Bengals.
What?
I think that's the Niners' 17th game. Because don't they do cross games?
Yeah.
Not the easiest draw. Kind of cool draw though. It's weird. Are
you talking about the
Niners? The 17th, the AFC NFC crossover game.
Yeah.
I think do the Niners play the Bengals this year?
No, they don't play the Bengals this year.
Who's their 17th game?
I gotta go back to my schedule notes. Schedule release show, John. Don't you remember?
I don't even. It doesn't even matter. Oh, they played the Bengals last year. I don't know why I thought thinking the Bengals.
Who is that?
Do they have a random AFC opponent?
Not the AFC West.
Someone in the chat said the Dolphins.
Oh yeah, I think it is Miami. I thought that game was, for some reason in my head, that game was week 18. I think it's Miami because they don't play the rest of that division. They don't play New England. They don't play the Jets.
What I think happens, don't quote me on this, everyone, but you could use this as the water cooler. Your 17th game is divisional, right? The NFC West draws the AFC East. Well, it's a schedule game. They got there's a big difference. Would you rather draw the Dolphins or the Patriots? Because obviously the Niners were third and the Dolphins were third. The Patriots were second. I think you might rather have the Patriots.
Well, Seattle got the Jets,
which is easily the best one, but they deserve that, right?
So this means that
The Rams got the Bills, who they open up against.
Rams
It doesn't
got the-
necessarily they don't all play on the same week, right? It's just that's just the game throughout your schedule. That's the extra game.
Yep.
I think you clearly, obviously, the Jets would be the number 1 draft pick, but in 2022, I don't know. I might pick the Patriots, especially for the Niners. You don't think so?
You don't think Kyle you'd rather play the Patriots than Tyreek and the Dolphins? Tua, Mike McDaniel.
Yeah, I guess you're just giving Bill respect, but
Cardinals Monday Night Football.
I just think that the Niners against quarterbacks like Mac that can't move, they've historically had a lot of success. Not that Tua can move, but they just got more little weapons to use. Mike, I mean, he's basically been Kyle's like second wife for the last decade. I mean, that's the way they talk about each other. How much time
Definitely
they
spent more time together, I think, probably.
Not even close. Not even close. Especially if you siphoned out the month of, June 20th through July 20th for the last 10 years. It would be McDaniel, I would say, in like an 80-20 time split. If you factored in the other 11 months of the year. Especially
plus
the
you
six.
top file. Oh, we're on vacation. Look who's here. Mike's gonna be in town. Just swing by for a couple of days.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
God.
Have there been some Thursday and Friday nights where Mike had to come over? They talked about some stuff.
All of a sudden, Dad shows up. Yeah. Mike Shanahan shows up. We're talking about Mike McDaniel, but Mike Shanahan shows up. Yeah. You can walk off. Yeah, that game in Cincinnati was on the other day.
Wonder how many years Mike Shanahan colored his hair. And then what year in retirement, you're like, what am I doing this for every day?
Doesn't anymore. That's for damn sure.
No, it's
thick. I mean, a full head of hair.
Great head of hair. Great head of hair.
Great flow. Charlene says Patriots would be the best option to end this Trey or Mac, who's better debate for good. That would be a good game just for that.
I think the conversation.
I just wouldn't want Belichick against Trey.
But from a business standpoint, I think the storylines are better than Miami.
100%.
Trey Mac.
Yeah, like, Mike McDaniel back home. Like, okay, I mean, that's cool. Like, you and I are excited about it, but
yeah, I could take Trey and Mac for a week, and then the reaction to the Trey and Mac performances.
You got 13 points against Bill. That's a win. I mean, you saw what he did in the frigid temperatures to Josh Allen last year. All right. On that note, we'll be back. We're going back to practice on Tuesday.
I mean, that's the plan.
That's the plan. That is the plan, which means we'll be back on YouTube on Tuesday after Niners practice. Full report. Somebody in the chat earlier said, wow, Guy and John really down on Trey Lance. No.
I can't play this game with the chat every day, though, if we're going to be positive and negative. Like, there are going to be people that the moment you get negative are get very sensitive.
I just want to establish that saying not everything went great is not saying we're down on Trey Lance. This is part of what it looks like.
Just going to say what we see.
That's right. Facts only.
People are going to get offended. People are going to get angry. People are going to get sensitive. I can't help it. Derek Jeter had 53 errors. First year rookie ball.
Wow. Buck Showalter was thinking, oh, my God, what mistake did we make? Stick Michael was like, don't worry, Buck. We got the right guy.
I mean, the big league manager pays attention. Like, that felt a little like, is that really happening? He's in the big leagues. He's paying
oh, yeah.
To the single A team?
Oh, yeah. He's getting a report. He was the 6th overall pick. I would bet on a weekly basis, once a week, he would talk to Derek's minor league managers just to get an update on how he's looking.
I guess in the mid-90s. Do you think now Gabe Kapler once a week is hearing about guys in single A?
I think that these guys always kind of just get an update on what guys are doing. Yeah. He may not be talking on the phone. But I think they all know. They all get an update. Like,
I guess it would make sense.
Seen enough, like,
half those guys could be on their team in the next year, right?
Well, and also, like, I've seen enough, like Bob Melvin just kind of bullshitting, when I was doing A stuff, when I was at the A's every day, and they'd be like, oh, man, so-and-so, how's he doing? Bob like, you know what? I was just talking to Forrest today. I hit a home run yesterday. Like, these guys know what's up.
Yeah, what else are you talking about?
They get a report every day. They get a report every day, I would bet you, on how all their guys are doing.
The front office or the manager?
I bet it's available just to all of them.
Yeah, in the system.
Yeah.
What are you doing? I mean, you get there at noon every day. You don't play till 7. It's like, how long does it take to set the lineup?
You can read a paragraph on how your top pick did.
That's true.
All right. Everybody, just go click the adult dating site links, just so they go give them
away.
go give them your money. YouTube, where are the YouTube police? Why do we have to do this ourselves?
I mean,
We're here making you guys money.
a lot going on in society, guy.
All right. Thanks for hanging, everybody.